Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif, Halaby, and Jeff Girard. Okay, we're talking about some of the scams and frauds that we're seeing around here, and we're kind of doing this as a not a special report, if you will, because it's always going on. There's always some sort of circulation of scammer or fraud guy out there or gal, and they often sound like your grandchildren. And let me explain to you something. It is easy to get to the heart of a senior if you are a real pleasant young lady that sound like their granddaughter. It's just the way it goes. Or a real soft-spoken young man that sounds like their grandson. It is something that they use on purpose. They know that if they can, hi grandma, or can I call you, may I call you, Mrs. Smith? Oh, call me Becky. Oh, hi Becky. Yeah, oh. And that is exactly what they use. And they do this in many ways, specifically when they read through the obituaries, or if it's a person that's passed away, and, Joe Smith, longtime war hero of Santa Clarita, dies at the age of 96. Survived by his, daughters, great-granddaughters, and predeceased by his wife and his son-in-law. Okay, so now you know there's a single lady out there that's, minus 20 years from 93, that's 73, maybe right around that age, and maybe she just lost her dad, and they try to get in there, and they'll use that information. Maybe it's a widow, right? His wife is still alive at the age of 87. Oh, really? Now, they know at the age of 87 that maybe she's still living in the city, maybe she's not. But if he is here, longtime resident of wherever, chances are pretty good that his widow is going to be here.
Right.
And Jeff, we've seen this. The first time that he passes away and leaves his wife, what happens? Everybody comes around.
Right.
And then they don't.
And then they don't.
And then 2 weeks, 6 weeks go by, and everybody goes back to their lives because they have to. It's called life. And then what do? Then we look at how these scam artists pop in the door, and they come in and say, oh, Joe loves golf, sailing, and, collecting airplanes. Okay. Joe and I used to golf together. Was that at the Knollwood Country Club or Little V? Oh, was it Little V? Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
It's amazing how many things they'll have in common at that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they can walk in your home and they say, oh, the last time we golfed together, I owe Joe, $100. So here's $100. Oh, no, you just keep that. No. I told him I would pay, and I just, times got tough. But anyway, here's $100. And when they look at that, what do they know?
They think you're trustworthy.
Oh my gosh, what an honorable person. You've walked across broken glass to give me that $100. And what do they understand? That they're lonely. Because their family's now gone. And they've left them. Not because they're bad or evil, but because, life moves on. And they'll walk into their home and they begin to take over. Especially if somebody is a divorcee or they've got alcohol or drug abuse. Let me tell you, Jeff, we had a client that used to own some property in Newhall, passed away, and the nanny with her 19-year-old son, I guess she was like a nanny, kind of a caretaker for the house.
Okay.
36 years old. He was 72.
Caretaker.
New wife. New wife, because they did get married. It's a quick ceremony. Not too many people were there, but the paperwork was filed. $14 million. A beautiful house in Agua Dulce, Acton. And two Rolex watches, maybe two that I know for sure, taken. Now, what were they taken for? Where did they go? Well, the son said, well, Dad, we want those, but the new son, who, from my understanding, called him Dad for a little while because he was estranged from his other sons, ended up with both Rolex watches.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
He would have wanted it that way.
Yeah, he sure would have. So, look, there's times when you have to babysit your wealth, your money, your stuff. If you don't, these guys come and take it. Jeff, one of the things that we often see is these home repair scams. What are some of the things that you see where they come out and they say, hey, we're going to fix that driveway?
That's right. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because that actually happened to my great-grandfather,
Oh, wow.
who I thought was one of the least trusting folks out there. Everybody had an angle. He didn't trust anybody really, except those inside, his family and his circle. And he happened to have an asphalt driveway in North Hollywood, right on the border of Burbank. And I'll tell you what, those things look great when they're nice and shiny and slick. And do you know it only takes about a day to get that done?
Imagine that.
According to this guy, yeah, everybody else wanted, weeks that he wouldn't
Yeah.
have his driveway, but these guys did it for less and in, a day's time.
As long as they paid cash.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, my grandpa only paid in cash, so this
Right.
was a perfect,
Yeah.
perfect transaction.
Was this around the earthquake? Do you know that, if it was after the earthquake?
No, I think
1994?
this was in the 80s.
Okay.
It may have been. It may have been. He did have some cracks in the driveway. But pretty interesting. And what these guys will do is they'll say they're going to come out and, they don't have to dig up the whole driveway. You don't have to be without your driveway for an extended
Wow.
period of time. And instead of, digging it out and doing it the right way and pouring asphalt, and you saw a lot of this in the San Fernando Valley, maybe up here and maybe where you grew up, Arif, but you'd see a lot of asphalt driveways because they were less
Yeah.
expensive to
sure.
install than cement. And the funny thing is, you could just go in there and coat it with oil and put a little substance on top, and it looked like it was going to dry like this amazing
Yeah, you're
asphalt
like,
driveway.
and you're walking around thinking, I only got it for $1,200
That's
instead
right.
of $4,000 or whatever the number was.
That's right. And in fact, it never dries because all they really did was put, lipstick on a pig, as they say.
Well, this used motor oil, folks, becomes a hazmat material.
That's right.
And now to get this stuff out, it's a hazardous materials situation. And the thousands of dollars that it's going to take to bring in a hazmat squad and the cordoning off. So they just dumped, a barrel of oil on your
right.
driveway. We saw this a lot with some of the, as a policeman, they had the band of gypsies, if you will. There was a gypsy group, brand new white construction trucks. And they would go along, and we would see this crime syndicate throughout the San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, I think, as well. And a lot of good people were taken, but everybody's quiet because you feel like a schmuck. I don't know what that means in Jewish language, but you feel like a schmuck, and you go, I feel like a jerk. I feel like I got taken. It shouldn't have been this way. I'm smarter than this, and how did I get taken? So people don't say anything. We had a client who was educated, at least a bachelor's, if not a master's degree, so formally educated, and a smart lady that ran her husband's business, the book side of the business, and he was out doing the business side of the business, the working side. So together they had a family business. They worked very hard, a very smart couple. They ran into some financial hard times, and she fell to this, send us this, and you won the lottery. It was, I don't know if it was a Canadian lottery or one of the lottery things. And ultimately, the back and forth, like you give them $500 and they give you back $750. You're like, see that? I made $250. So
Look how smart I am.
until the number got up to $25,000,
Oh,
and she never saw that again. And when they came in, she had just told her husband about this like the day before. And he didn't know about it. He didn't know she had taken cash advances on credit cards.
oh,
When they were already in a financial tailspin, right? They were trying to save their business. And she thought she was doing the right thing, trying to help, because her husband worked so hard at what he did, and she didn't want to burden him with the financial troubles. And so she went out and she says, I'm going to go see what I can do. And this is what she did. She's not a dummy. And she fell for this $25,000. She didn't want to make a police report because that's public information. So who wants to have your name out, especially when you have a business that other community people will utilize,
right.
and they see that you just got schnookered for
Yeah, they'll wonder.
$25,000.
They'll wonder as a public, what else is going on, and they'll just shy from your business.
That's right.
And it doesn't just go from 500 to 25,000. You give them $5, they give you back $750. Oh, that worked. Let's try it again. Hey,
And
we need 1,000. You give them 1,000, they give you back 1,500, and they work their way up. And you give them $10,000, they give you back 15. Look, send us 25, we'll give you 50.
And you actually think it's working.
That's right.
And you think, haha, I won, or yes, or no. But it doesn't happen. So I'm not saying that it's necessarily an older person or a dummy or 5 feet tall or 6 feet tall. It doesn't matter.
Right.
These scammers look like everybody. They walk and talk like everybody. Each group seems to have its own little niche, if you will, because there are different groups, whether it's ethnic backgrounds or ages, that tend to scam certain people. Young people, or at least young sounding people, tend to scam elderly people because they sound like just how sweet and innocent.
Sure.
Right? So there's just all types of backgrounds. And you got to get away from this baloney of political correctness. Everybody says it. I wonder why. Look, unless I'm running for any presidency or Congress or something, I'm never going to agree with anybody the whole time. And even if I'm running, I probably will change my mind sometime. So,
right.
So then you're probably looking at 98%, let alone if it was my spouse. So all I care about is, do I agree with them at least 51% of the time, or at least more than the other person? I guess maybe that's the standard. And I share that with you because you're going to see that the political correctness that's going on right now costs people money. It's like, oh, let's close our eyes. Let's pretend like it's not really raining or the king has no clothes. Reread that children's book, kids. Adults, reread it. Do you have any idea what that means? It meant everybody was afraid to say anything. And the king's tailor, the king couldn't find anything nice to wear. I'm going to surmise the whole thing and maybe even mess it up a little bit, but you get the idea. And so the king said, oh no, you look good naked. You look good, just walk down the streets. He goes, oh, you like that? You like my outfit? Oh yeah, it's a great outfit. And he was wearing nothing.
Oh.
But everybody in the king's court and all the people in the king's land didn't want to say anything because they would get beat up or be beheaded or put in the stockade or whatever the king would do at the time.
I think those are all good reasons to not say something.
Right. So he walks around and people go, oh, I love your clothes. He goes, yes, I do. I love my clothes. Oh, I love what you, yes. And that's the same thing. Everybody's afraid to say something like, really, a boy walking into a girl's bathroom because he today calls himself a girl? Okay. Can't say anything because they're going to call you transphobic. Is that what the new one? Which means you're afraid to go across the country, or transcontinental or transatlantic?
You might be scared of the Atlantic Ocean or something, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Crazy.
Is anybody going to stand up? I don't know. Maybe that's why Donald Trump is so powerful. Because people, I don't know. I don't agree with 100%, 80, 90, 60, right? There's not a whole lot. But I think people love the fact that he's standing up and telling people that they're crazy when they're crazy and they're dumb when they're dumb. And I get it, I understand how people are saying publicly what you're thinking privately, and you only tell your spouse. It's a scary thing for people.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. So secretly people like to hear that kind of stuff leave his mouth, but everybody else shies away from doing something like that.
I don't know. I think you're going to see that it's going to be scary to the political establishment because everybody has lived in this little, what we need to do is carefully consider the yes, but no. Maybe, but possibly. It depends. And at the end of the interview with whatever politician, you're like, but what was just said? Do we really dislike those guys? Are we going to let them have a nuclear weapon? Are we okay with them, shipping jobs overseas? I don't know. Where are we okay? Or are we not okay? Am I supposed to like it, or just go about my business and worry about walking my dog later and what's going to happen on Judge Judy tomorrow? I don't know. I don't want to get too excited. When is up, down, and down, up? I guess today. So it is easy for scam artists to think that they're getting their piece when they see people with suits and ties and college degrees and nicely cut hair and well-dressed walking down the street, stealing from them, but calling themselves either a politician or a business owner or a Wall Street banker. It's easy for them to say, and so what's the big deal? I'm going to take mine from, she probably got it illegally anyway, or she probably didn't work that hard, or she probably inherited, or he was probably, won it in a lawsuit. That's not real money anyway, because everybody's suing people for dropping hot coffee on them. Wow, coffee's hot. Ooh, imagine that. Surprise, coffee's hot. What do you mean you spilled it on yourself? Well, it's too hot. What's too hot? I don't know. Really, really hot or really hot? Right? So the normal stuff that happens in your mind, but don't say anything. Don't say anything. We don't want to tell people.
You might offend somebody.
I probably already did. Oh, gosh, I probably already did. Look, this is your money. If you work for it, then you should keep it. You should pay some taxes, a little bit, to make sure the roads are good so you can get to work, to make sure the police protect you when bad guys come, to make sure the fire department comes and puts out the fire, to make sure your kids are educated in a school, that's fine. But should you pay for, a $400 toilet seat? Should you pay for, the IRS that keeps stealing and lying and et cetera, right? I mean, that's the court documents. That's not me. And yet, at the same time, are paid all these bonuses. Should you pay for Wall Street? The same guys that lost, here, a client came in today or yesterday. Oh, Arif, we lost $56,000 in our investments. Whew. Another one came in. They lost nearly $400,000 in their investments.
How do you come back from that?
So they made some of that money back, and they said, Arif, we're just out. Enough is enough. I go, wow, did your brokerage charge you a fee the whole time? Yes, they did. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So you had $560,000. You went down below 200.
Oh.
And now you're back up to 250, 240. And they charged you a fee the whole way down and the whole way back up? Yep. And you're okay with that? No, I'm not okay with that, but what am I going to do? I don't know, but maybe you might want to move that. It's up to you.
Not even the IRS is that
that
bad. They
not
usually
even
only tax you once, either going in or coming out. That's
not
pretty
even
bad.
if you win the lotto, they take that
Right,
much.
right.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
That's horrible.
So isn't it any wonder that people are questioning up and down and male and female, and you can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself and marry, whomever you choose or however many you choose. I don't know. The world's changing. We'll be back in just a minute. Total Financial Solutions. Arif, Halaby, Jeff Girard. You got to watch yourself. There's a lot of scam artists out there, and their job is to kind of take your money. So keep yourself safe. We'll be back in just a minute. Total Financial Solutions, AM 1220 KHTS. Hey, welcome back to the show. Total Financial Solutions, Save for Money Hour. All right. We want to give you a couple of tips here. Jeff, give me one tip. Let's go back and forth here. One tip if you're a senior citizen, if you're out there and you get a phone call from somebody that sounds like it's your grandchild or a niece or a young nephew or somebody that needs money.
Make them tell you their name. Don't say, oh, is this little Susie or little Johnny? Because guess what? That's going to be their name. Surprise, it's them.
That's a great tip. Here's another one. Call another relative. Call and say, hey, do you happen to have little Susie's phone number? Do you have their real number? Can you give them a call? Or let me double check. Maybe you can get a number where they actually are. What's the phone number? You can go online and do jail Tijuana, Mexico, right? Or
Yep.
jail Manila, Philippines, or wherever you think your family or kids might be.
And it might not be something that outlandish. It could be something where they're just, they were partying 2 hours away down south at a friend's, frat house or something, and they got in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, they might come up with something really crafty and that sounds, a lot more credible.
And the problem is when they make enough of these calls, eventually they get to the grandparent that goes, oh yeah, that sounds like little Susie.
Right.
Right? Because there are young people that get themselves into trouble every once in a while, and as they're growing up and figuring life out, they might end up, it's at least logical to go, oh yeah, that kid could end up in whatever story they're telling. Mm-hmm. So keep in mind that in this process that it could be legitimate, but honestly, you're probably at 1% or 2%. It's just a guess, a long shot on my part, but I wouldn't say that it's more than 3 or 4% of the time. If you get 100 of these phone calls, that maybe 1 or 2% might be, wow, that sounds like that could be that person.
And that's all they really need is that little margin, because they're just going to win once or twice making these calls. Something else is, we were talking about when someone passes away and you have a widow or a widower, the family starts to trickle away after a couple weeks. Make sure you stay in touch with somebody else, whether it's a child, or, a nephew, a niece. Keep someone close by that you kind of run things through, or just at least kind of make mild mention. Oh, so-and-so called and needed some money, or hey, this person came around and said they owed, my husband this much money, or oh, did you remember so-and-so's friend? Just to kind of double check in case you have some of these folks that are making these things up. And typically they'll wait for all the family to kind of trickle away and not be around anymore before they start making calls and knocking on doors.
Yes, and often if you have a mother, maybe a grandmother, that is in a situation like that, or a grandfather or father, I want you to stay in touch with them, as Jeff was saying, but consider putting yourself as an additional user or a notification on their bills. In other words, keep this in mind. You can actually have on insurances like life insurance and electric bill, and even if they still have a homeowner's insurance or a mortgage, to be notified if there's any late payments. So whenever they send out a statement towards the client or the person, they're also going to send out one to you. If there's a notification that says, hey, you're 30 days late, you'll receive one. And it's a way for you to keep an eye. Hey, did somebody get a hold of their checkbook? Hey, is grandma managing her money properly? Are we missing something here? Maybe she's just kind of slowly forgetting things. And in that process of forgetting things, she might think, oh, I already paid that electric bill. So when these people call, it's legitimate for her to go, oh, well, maybe I didn't pay it, right? Because maybe it is a late one or not. So these are possibilities that you can help eliminate. So being added to the bank statements, the credit cards, so you can get a copy of the bank statement, make sure that there isn't any weird charges on it.
And really, I think the key is to make sure that you don't try to strip away the responsibility of these folks managing their own finances or their lives, but being just an additional person that's notified, it's just really for tricky behavior, because I know that I do that same thing for my mom as well. So
yeah, and it also keeps a second set of eyes. It doesn't mean, like, usually as a husband and wife, you guys are keeping an eye on each other's stuff, so that's a way for you to watch that as you go as well. Keep an eye on each other. Pay attention. You can always go to tfswealth.com. That's tfswealth.com. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Girard. Total Financial Solutions, Save for Money Hour on your place for news, talk, and information. AM 1220 KHTS.